That's great so far. Right. Good afternoon, Rebecca. Thank you for joining me for afternoon tea today.
It's a pleasure. Really good to meet you. Hi.
So, my first question to you is, what was your childhood like?
Ooh, it was. I was thinking about it last night because I think it has quite an influence on where I am today. So I wrote down that I was born in Yorkshire and I really loved it. We lived in this place called Ripon, and we lived in an old Victorian house, which is now worth a fortune, but was a tip when we lived in it because we were doing it up. But we were in front of the river, and so we always had access to nature and trees, and I had lots of friends around there. So that element of it was really, really happy. We spent a lot of time traveling to interesting places. My mum loved traveling around the world. So I was slightly resentful that I'd spend I don't know, my school holidays and my birthday in Hong Kong. Seems a bit ungrateful now, but it was like, what am I doing here? Because all my friends weren't doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But also I think a lot of people died very young in my childhood. And that's where some of the wounds have come from. And that's where a lot of the healings needed to be done. And that's what's made me a decent coach. And the other thing that was interesting about my childhood was that my mum and my dad are the wrong way around. Right, in the 70s, that was really uncomfortable. So my mum was the breadwinner, my mum was the head teacher, my mum was the kind of masculine, go-getting energy. And my dad was the artist who stayed home and raised me. And he had a man bag for his artist materials. Nobody had a man bag in 1979. It was humiliating. And my mum used to pick me up from school in her Triumph Spitfire, which was bright yellow. And it was like, can you pick me up somewhere else? And she was too busy. She'd always come to the door. So yeah, my whole of my childhood felt a bit kind of humiliating because they weren't like other parents. Yeah.
So, did you have any siblings?
I'm an only child, and I think I always wanted a sibling. I know quite a lot of siblings now, you know, sisters and brothers who have never got on and never will. So it's a romantic idea. But I think what it taught me was that how to make connections. I had to reach out. When you've got a sibling, this is my fantasy, it's a given that you're around somebody because they've always been there. Whereas when you're an only child, you have to do a little bit more work and reach out. So I think it's made me quite good at connecting with people and finding common ground.
Okay. And so, did you enjoy school?
That was a game of two halves.
And you let on that your mum was a head teacher.
I know.
You go to the school that your mum taught at?
No. So I only went to her school for 1 week because she made sure I didn't, because she would have been conflicted and I was conflicted. And she was so mean to me that week because she didn't want to make me a favourite. It was like, I'm glad I'm going somewhere else. She was horrible to me. Put me in a different school, please. No, I generally really liked school when I was young. And I was very good and I played by the rules and I did as I was told. And I think it's quite common with daughters or kids of authority figures that then you rebel. So I did that and I did it quite well. So I managed to get my GCSEs, but things went downhill after that. And I think the thing that broke it actually was my parents splitting up. Not that I thought that they should stay together, but when I was 14, they split up. I think I thought, oh, it's all been a waste of time. Didn't make them stay together. So I began to rebel a little bit.
So what was your favourite subject at school?
I was thinking about that. I'm a bit of an all-rounder. I'm still a bit of an all-rounder. I seem to be really good at RE. What's that about? I'm heathen. You know, I was brought up with no religion, but I was really excelled at RE when I was little. And I seemed to be quite good at maths, but I didn't know why. I was like the bottom of the top class. So I was always going, oh, I don't know what's going on, and didn't want to ask. I enjoyed French because I was top of the bottom class. So I was confident. I was, yeah, isn't it interesting? It's like, because I was better than the others in the class, so I felt better. But my favourite subject was woodwork. My favourite subject was woodwork and metalwork, and using the machines and making stuff and learning things. And there was something to show at the end of the afternoon. It was like I'd have made something instead of all this kind of thinking stuff. So yeah. yeah, being with the boys, I really liked it.
And were there any?
However,
Sorry.
sorry, I was just going to say, however, that was one of the problems that was at school, because by going and studying woodwork, I had some friends who were boys, and then the girls rejected me for like a year because I knew some boys, and I didn't understand that. I didn't understand why it had to be either or. It was really, it's really challenging.
Yeah, very hard.
Mm.
So were there any other problems at school other than the girls and the boys? Were there any problems with teachers apart from when your mum taught you?
I got on pretty well with the teachers because I could play by the rules. Because of how, I mean, both my parents had been teachers to begin with, but I think I could read the rules quite well. I think there was one episode on the French exchange where I discovered that that I was quite attractive, and also I discovered alcohol, and I had my first blackout. And apparently I was halfway off a lamppost yelling about condoms, age 14, because the place we were near was condom, and I thought it was hilarious. I don't remember it at all. So that was a kind of transition point for me. I don't think I behaved very well. It was like the sort of parents' evening at the end of the week. So I found that alcohol could take me from very quiet, and I was quite quiet, and speaking French was really difficult. Being on the French exchange, to this kind of extrovert, it could take me into a different self. But I never really quite knew where the boundaries were. So by the time I got to A levels, at the end of my first year of A levels, I was predicted 3 Bs. And by the end of my second year, I got 2 Fs and a not at all. I hadn't been studying the syllabus.
So did you retake your A levels?
Wasn't allowed. And actually, to be fair, there was a rationale behind this. To be fair, I think I would have just hung out with the same people and taken the same substances and partied. So my mum said, either you go and get a job, or you go through clearing and get on a degree, because she wanted to go around the world. So that was how motivated my mum was. She was like, I've done 18 years now. She hadn't been there the whole 18, but she was really like, she was having her own difficulties, so she went off traveling for a year. So I went through clearing. I thought, I'm not getting a job, I'll go and do a degree. You could get like a grant and everything those days, and I thought, well, I'll go and do that instead. But that was hard. So I ended up in Peckham in South London, and I was pretty naive. I think I was really naive, and I only just got my degree, but all sorts of scary things happened. I was kind of at the heart of the rave culture, and I was living in squats, and I was doing all the exciting things, and I was hanging out with the not rich and famous, all that sort of slightly well known. But it was quite scary. It was quite a scary time for me. And as a woman in South London, some frightening things happened, and I don't think I was quite equipped for it. I had a lot of fun. I didn't. It wasn't all awful. I did have a lot of fun as well. Apparently, from the outside, I looked like I was having fun, from what I can remember.
So, what degree did you study at university, and how did you manage to get into university without?
By playing the game. So you could go through clearing at the time, and there'd be kind of places, courses that hadn't been filled up, and there was a place at Camberwell School of Art, which I now think, I really missed out on the privilege of going there, because I didn't appreciate it at all, and people had really fought to get to Camberwell School of Art. And there was a degree called the History of Drawing and Printmaking, which was quite niche and wasn't going to get me a job, and didn't. And I thought, well, I know about art history. My dad's an artist, and it turns out that art history is all about how can I put this? Power and porn. So it's about men's power, and it's about naked female figures, and it's about religion. And I was brought up a heathen, so I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what was going on at all. I'd been brought up with a sculptor, and we'd go to like the Tate, and he'd say, pile of bricks, is it art? We'd have those kind of conversations, and that wasn't the kind of art I was studying. I was suddenly studying stuff that had been in churches, and all that kind of historical stuff. So what I did get really good at, the only thing that got me through, was I got really good at, I learned about iconography. I realized you could look at a picture, and you could read a picture by looking at the symbols in it. And I'd say I used that still in my coaching, actually. I could never have guaranteed that at the time, so I just about got through. But the side I enjoyed was half of it was science. So half of it was how to restore works of art on paper. And at one point they gave us a 16th century print, really valuable, and said, wash that. And with some rules, obviously, but it felt like quite a responsibility. And had I got a decent mark, I might have gone to the Courtauld Institute. As it was, I didn't. I did a touch typing course instead. I was unemployable. I was completely unemployable.
So how did you end up doing your divine feminine at work? Was that straight from uni into, what was the journey?
The journey has been an interesting one. The Divine Feminine at Work is really recent. So the Divine Feminine at Work was gifted to me through a series of meetings at the end of 2020. What I have been for a year, 10 years before that, is a career coach. And the reason I'm a career coach is that my career was a disaster. And I can't tell you how excruciating it was to, can I swear on here? I'm going to do it anyway, to fuck up over and over again. My confidence was so low because I kept trying things and people would hire me and I was very hireable and I could say the right things. I couldn't do the job. And I was also really unable to say, I don't know how to do that, because as a young person, as the daughter of a head teacher, I was expected to know the answer, I guess. So I kept failing, and I kept failing quicker. I mean, they talk about that being a success now in project management. It really wasn't. It was horrendous. So eventually I ended up with something called ME. And in order to get my way out of ME, I went and did an NLP process that fixed me within 3 days. I had been ill for 3 years. I'd worked during those 3 years, but I had been ill for 3 years, and it turned off the adrenaline. And I thought, this brain thing we're carrying around is really powerful. So I trained as a coach, and then I trained as a clinical supervisor. And then the clients that showed up to me, oddly enough, were the people who had big brains, couldn't decide what their thing was, didn't know that they were really, really competent, and thus couldn't kind of move, didn't know where to go, they were trapped. And that was exactly the position I'd been, where I could talk my way in and out of a new idea, use all that energy, and then just end up really tired because nothing came of it. But yeah, the amount of times I got sacked or walked out of places just before I could get sacked, or it was just awful. It's just awful. And I guess the career coaching thing was, if I can help people recognize, because I can now see that all those things that I did in the past, I did sales, I did marketing, I did Prince's Trust team leadership, I did advertising, I did just a multitude of things, and I can see, and training and development, and I can see they all led to me being able to set up a business. I had all the skills, but I've been using them in service of other people. So I then knew that decade hadn't been wasted. And I also can now help people recognize what they've gained if they feel like they're failing, that actually their last decade or 2 decades hasn't been wasted. And that's a real privilege. And also how brilliant they are. People do not know their own brilliance. So if I get to say, look what you've achieved, that's just a real treat. I was talking the other day about a woman who she came to me because she was selling her business, and she'd started the business 20 years ago. It was an e-commerce. She'd never really believed in things. She'd never really believed in retail. And she made a success of it, and she sold it and she made lots of money. But she was like, what do I do next? I can't really do anything. And it's like, well, hang on. If over 20 years you've made a real success of something that you didn't enjoy, just imagine what you could do if you did find something you enjoyed. She had no comprehension of her brilliance. So yeah, she's now doing an MBA next to her and choosing her next thing, which is great.
That's so you did the career coaching, then you had gifted to you, did you say?
Yeah, this business vision landed, which I didn't ask for. I was aware I was a little bit wasn't bored. I was kind of coasting with the coaching. I got a decent reputation and I loved the one-to-one dive, but I was like, some people seem to be making more money out of their coaching. They seem to be able to kind of grow it, and I don't know what that looks like. So a mistake I made. It turns out to be a gift, but it felt like a mistake, because I went out for a peer coaching day with a coach who had come to work with me and then become a coach herself. So we spent a day together, and she took a look at my business with her corporate head on and went, well, you need to do public speaking, you need to finish the book, you need to, do groups, you need to be doing franchising, you need to be in a... I don't know what all this has got to do with me. It didn't feel like me. It was like, okay, so I can grow all of this, but how do I do it? And then I'd been writing a book, and suddenly I found the title of it, and the title of it was The Divine Feminine at Work. And suddenly I knew what this business was about. It was about honouring the divine feminine in our workplaces and in our businesses and in our lives, and that we haven't been doing it. So it was the title of the book that gave it to me, and then suddenly it's gone a bit mad.
Oh. So I take it the Divine Feminine at Work is obviously a course just for women. Wow.
No. This is the interesting thing. So, as I see it, we've had 2,000 years, I've studied the art history around this, we've had 2,000 years of working in the masculine. So we're very evidence-based, we're very science-based, we're very kind of action-orientated, we're very prove. And the feminine side of things is the receiving, it's the collaboration, it's the celebration, it's the nourishment. And we're not doing any of that in business. And I think the result is we're getting really tired. Like task, deliver, and where's the nourishment? There's no celebration, there's no reward, I was working with somebody the other day, and he said he got an Easter egg at Easter from his company, or there'd be random cake, but it wasn't for anything anybody had done. The people who hadn't done any work got cake. The people who hadn't worked hard got cake. There was no meritocracy. There was no reward in there. And I think we've got really disconnected from the humans and from our planet. And so it's not about men and women. It's about the energies. It's about using feminine energy in order to make really wise decisions. And then it's about using masculine energy in order to action the decision you've made. So looking at my career in the past, I kept going, I'm at A and I should be at B. So I like humans, I should go and work in personnel. But I wasn't going, did I want to? What do I want out of my job? I wasn't collaborating. I wasn't asking anybody. I wasn't really in that crucible of information gathering. I wasn't consulting. I wasn't inviting other people in. I was just going, well, I'll go from A to B. And every time my B was the wrong B. So I'd go from A to B, fail, A to B, fail, A to B. And I think we're doing this in business. I think we're doing this in careers, business. I think we're doing it in our environmental solutions. I think we're going, well, we need that, so we'll go from A to B. But actually, what do we really need? And then once we've got there, let's celebrate. What did we learn? Let's reflect. Let's reward ourselves. Let's have a rest so we're not actually exhausted when we start again. So both genders need both energies in order to action wise decisions and to then to action them well and celebrate them. So we don't get tired. And that means that men can be vulnerable, men can cry, men don't get into that toxic masculinity. It means that they can go, I don't know the answer to that too. And I think how I got here is that I've been stuck in my kind of toxic masculinity for quite a long time. I've been behaving like my mum, going, well, I'll just pretend I know the answer. And it didn't work. It's like to talk to people, invite people in, get vulnerable and design it together. Ask everybody, and then come to a good conclusion.
So has the pandemic affected your business? Or enhanced your business, do you think?
To begin with, when lockdown happened, and I'd been in business 8 years then as Demon Career Coach, and it went completely silent for 2 weeks, and I went, oh shit, there goes my business. And there was a lot of stuff on sort of email and people launching things, and that was all too much as well. It was like, oh no, I unsubscribe from everything. And my husband, in his wisdom, said, well, shouldn't you advertise to get, I've never advertised, shouldn't you advertise to get some more business in? And it was like, I don't think so, because everybody's in crisis. I don't want their crisis. You know, it's like that's not the coaching that I do. The coaching that I do is a deep dive. I don't want to be firefighting. So I thought, well, okay, if Demon's gone, I'll start writing the book again. I'd started writing the book 4 years ago, and then my mum had died, and I'd got busy, and I'd put it aside. So that's when I picked it up again, and hired myself a writing coach, because I thought, right, okay, if I'm going to do this, I need some accountability and I need some guidance. So, okay, the business is gone, I'll write a book. Within 2 weeks, all my old clients were back. You know, all the people I adore working with were like, hey, life's a bit tricky now. Can we debrief it? So then I had a book that I was writing and a full practice. And that's been kind of awesome, but also, this will make you giggle. Thinking about the divine feminine, we've done a complete role swap in this house. I'm now the breadwinner. My husband's not at work. So we've totally swapped round, whereas he was the breadwinner and I was working from home. So yeah, obviously the timing was right.
Yeah. So is there anything that you would have changed about your life? If you had to go back, would there be anything that you would change?
There's only one thing I would change, and I'll put this in context. Okay, so I have to live in a sea of Bristol blue glass, and I'll explain that. I've not had an easy adulthood. I'll tell you some things like I came into recovery from addiction when I was 26, and that was quite early, and it was tough. I ended up in a psychiatric unit when I was 30 and threw myself under a lorry. So I've been to those dark places. And now I wouldn't change any of those, because they're gold. They're absolute gold. They're absolute gold for my life, and they are absolute gold for my clients and the work that I do. So the blue glass. When I got into recovery, sort of after about 3 months, I knew I wasn't going to go back to the job that I'd been in, and with Higher Education Funding Council. So I went to Bristol Blue Glass and I saw them blowing it, and I thought, that's amazing. So I went down there and I volunteered. I said, can I just assist? I need to be doing something else. I'm just into recovery, and yeah, I'd like to try it. And I spent a day. We were down at the SS Great Britain. I didn't know we were going to be on shows. There was a woman who was blowing some glass, and I was doing all the heating up on the blowpipe for her, and we were working as a team, and we really got into flow. And the glass was really liquid, and it was an amazing thing. And Bristol Blue Glass is an incredible colour, and there were people watching. And there were moments where gravity got the better of me, and it would fall off and make a noise. And there'd be some lost glass. And then at the end of the day, the boss, he came to me or to us and said, you two work really well together. He said, I'd like to pay you. I'd like to hire you. And I was so scared. I ran away. Never went back. Because I wasn't ready. I really wasn't ready. I didn't even go back and get the pieces that I'd blown that day. He said, you'll just earn a piece if you stay. And I was just like, no, I can't do it. But ever since, I've bought quite a lot of Bristol Blue Glass, and it took me a while to work out why. It was like, because that was the one job opportunity that, had it been a different time, that would have been amazing to have been a female team blowing glass. Yeah, it was quite a rare thing. It wasn't the right time, but yeah, I've got lots of flipping blue glass now. So once I realised what the connection was, I could stop buying it. So, that's the one thing I regret. So out of all those things, as I say, there would have been really dark times in my life. That's the only thing I would change. Yeah, which is pretty awesome. Yeah.
Okay then. So we've only got Mandy on the broadcast listening today, but how can we help you? And how can the listeners help you? Or if people need help from you, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, what I might do, actually, I might just copy and paste my details in chat, if that's all right, because that's one way of getting it out there, isn't it? Let's see if that goes. Yeah. So I think what I was looking for, I was talking to a man the other day, and it always intrigues me when I talk to men about business, because they have totally different programming. That's a generalization. But he said, when I contract with a client, he said, I always contract on the grounds they're going to pay me cash, and also they're going to recommend me to 3 people. I'm like, never even crossed my mind to do that. So I'm learning as I go along. So what I was thinking is, where can I best show up, really? My core clients are senior people who've worked really, really hard for their position and have got there and gone, it's not what I wanted. Yeah. So they've ticked all the boxes, they've worked really hard, they've played the game, they've climbed the ladder, they've done the networking, and they're like, I'm dying on the inside. So that's the piece of work I really love doing one-to-one. And so if you know anybody who's going, and I think this is quite common in this time, where people are reflecting and going, what is life all about? And is my work really meeting my need? So that's where I show up in a kind of really deep dive way. I also run a similar process in groups, and that's a different, it's a slightly different animal, but it's really nourishing to be held in a kind of crucible of 6 women who are all doing the deep dive together. It's really rich. It's a really enjoyable experience. So there won't be one of those running till October now, but they're a whole heap of fun. So yeah, that can be offered up, and it's slightly cheaper for people if they don't want to do the deep dive one-to-one. The extroverts like that. The other side is myself and a woman called Kat Taylor. She's an occupational therapist and works for a company called BoxFit. We are designing some provision for small to medium enterprises. And I think that the next decade in this country particularly is going to be quite challenging with Brexit, post sort of pandemic stuff, if we ever get to be post-pandemic. So we're designing something really around the divine feminine, which is about people's resilience. It's about an organization's resilience and their teamwork. It's their ability to work together, which will hold people through these challenging times. So yeah, if anybody's going, oh, how am I going to get through the next bit, then that's the work I'm going to be doing with people early next year. And the other side is, fed up for chat if you've got a difficulty, I can forward you my Calendly link, and you can just book yourself in. We can have a conversation, And I think for businesses and for people, and especially women, that kind of crucible, that decision-making process is something that's not valued. We need to value it much, much more. It takes time, but it means we're designing it well. And then if we can actually pause and take the reward from it and celebrate and let it settle, we can use all that wisdom. It's about pausing and not running. Do you want a little task that sort of plays into this that you can do tonight? So make a list of, and this is something you can either share with a partner or do on your own, doesn't matter. But when I go to bed at night, me and my husband, if we're still talking to each other, we do 3 things we're grateful for. And that's really good for triggering the serotonin before you go to sleep. And we do 3 things that we've done well that day, which kind of over time really boosts your confidence, really makes you sort of look at your day and go, actually, that might have felt like a tricky day, but I did really well. And then there's another thing. There's something called the fertile void in Gestalt, in the cycle of learning. And the fertile void is where everything's sinking in. So if you've got a quandary, if you ask at night, ask yourself, ask the universe, whatever. If you ask your question, I bet you wake up with the answer, because your brain is processing it for you. That's the fertile void. So those are 3 little tricks that you can try, which might make you feel better and recognize what you've done well and raise your confidence and even give you the answers that you need. Because we're really used to turning to Google, aren't we? We go, I need to find something out. And it's actually our answers lie inside. So accessing that can be really important. We've been told that we need to ask an expert or an authority, but actually the older I get, the more I realize I am my own authority. I'm really happy to consult with people. I'm really happy to ask questions. I'm really happy to be humble and not know. But when it comes down to it, it's me who needs to make my own answers. So looking inside is really important.
Well, I mean, we've both done NLP. And one of the presuppositions of NLP is you've got all the resources within inside you. So what's that telling us?
Absolutely.
We've got the answers.
We've got layers of wisdom, and some of it's what we've got in our own life. I always think with epigenetics, we've also got kind of ancestral wisdom. We've got masses of information which we just discard and pick up Google, and it's like, no, my answers and your answers are all here. If we can just still ourselves for long enough. but the stilling ourselves for long enough is a challenge in a culture that keeps saying deliver, 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 deliver. So that's the challenge. It's actually a challenge to step back and be a human being instead of a human doing. I'm really bad at it. I'm practicing. Yeah.
Have you got any questions that you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I think I have, Rebecca. I find it really great that you've done a hell of a lot in your life, and you had the chance, you know, in your school life, you could have done more better at school. Yeah, I found that really, really great and very impressive that it went the other way, even though you had your parents there to kind of help you. My question on you is that with your blowing of your glass, why don't you go back into that area? I can also imagine you with your metalwork, making jewelry. I could imagine you with maybe your woodwork, making such sculptures and everything. I was very impressed with that because I was very, very good at metalwork and woodwork at school myself. I made such certain things, and my things were always in the showcase, and I was really proud of myself. But in maths, I wasn't very good. So my question is, maybe that why don't you go that direction, or would you not want to go back to such things, to doing such things?
I think it's a really, really interesting observation, because when I came back from my that utter breakdown, which I now see as a real initiation, I did spend a decade as an artist, and I ran the open studios, and that really is an aspect of me. And people who've known me through that time are like, "Where's your art gone? You know, why are you not doing your art?" And I think the creativity is now in working with people. There's a real kind of creativity in that kind of being responsive to what people need rather than being too structured about something. So that dance in the moment, that creating a business, it's just another iteration of a similar thing, but without necessarily having a physical thing at the end, but I can feel it. So that's where it's shown up. But that's a really interesting observation of that. I think my quandary was, my dad was practical, my mum was kind of cerebral. Which was I? And I'm both. And that's been really hard to reconcile. It's, do I, you know, then I didn't know where to show up.
You've done really very well, really, really great. Writing a book and really super, very impressed, Rebecca.
Thank you. It's been an enormous journey, but it's made my work gives me joy. Who knew? One of my core values is joy. I didn't know that was a thing. You know, my work was hell in the past, and now my work gives me joy in that, being in relationship. And if I can enable somebody else to become unstuck and to see their own brilliance and to hold space while they do that, haven't got their answers, and to be more nourished and to be more potent in the world, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be here for. Yeah.
Really great.
Thank you. I'm still a member of an art group, so I do exhibit every now and again, but it's never a strand that will go, is it? But I think that creativity around business, that ability to kind of one of the things I love about Bristol is the small businesses. It's lots of little innovative. I mean, it was built on the slave trade and banking, so there's a rebellion going on, which suits me really well. And there's all this kind of innovative, kind of agile little businesses around who I think are really interesting. You know, they're really doing business in a slightly different way. I'm going to be political now, but I think the corporates are doing a disservice. And I think if we can foster this business community, that's a really creative thing to do as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions, Karen? You've asked me lots, but any more?
I don't think so. No, I'm just going to say thank you very much for joining me this afternoon for afternoon tea.
No, really, really nice. Really nice to talk to both of you. Thank you so much for your input and your obvious enjoyment. That helps a lot, doesn't it?